Kim Jong Un is considered one of the world's worst dictators, and not without reason. He rules North Korea with an iron fist, and anyone who dares to oppose him is often disappeared forever. The 40-year-old doesn't even stop at his own family. So in this video, we want to show you Kim Jong Un's cruelest acts and the bizarre methods he uses to eliminate his opponents. So stay tuned here at Wise Fool. When Kim Jong Un took power in North Korea after his father's death in 2011, the world still had the faint hope that he might not continue his rule in such a cruel way. However, in reality, the opposite has happened. The young dictator not only wanted to prove to the world that he was in complete control of North Korea, but also to show other important members of the government that he alone had the power, and so he even got rid of the 7 high-ranking officials who had the honor of carrying his father's coffin at the time. The country's defense minister, Han Yong-chol, also took note of the fact that no one other than him was allowed to have political speech in North Korea. This was only because the officer, who had decades of military experience, dared to propose different strategies for the military than Kim Jong Un. Kim Jong Un considers himself a military genius and likes to be described as such on North Korean state television. So he accused the defense minister of disloyalty and disrespect and tied him to an anti-aircraft gun in front of a military school in front of hundreds of soldiers. Kim Jong-un thus wanted to show all the military officials what would happen if they objected, and even forced the entire family of the defense minister to watch. However, Kim Jong-un's megalomania is not only evident in the fact that he thinks he knows more about military matters than a defense minister with decades of experience. In fact, the dictator believes he knows better than the relevant experts in every sector of the state, including education, of course. Even though only the ideology of the Kim family is taught in the country's schools and universities anyway, the dictator therefore had the so-called purges in the Ministry of Education carried out. However, these purges did not just consist of dismissals, as Kim sent some of the most senior officials of the Ministry of Education to a North Korean labor camp and condemned them to perform the hardest physical labor under inhumane conditions. But the worst blow was dealt to Kim Jong-jin, North Korea's education minister. A shocking fate awaited him because he did not stand up and look up when the dictator entered the hall at an important conference, but instead looked down and with one hand in his trousers, he greeted Kim Jong-un. For his disrespectful behavior, he was punished by being brought before an executive detachment. In total, several hundred important officials and high-ranking ministers in the country have lost their lives for such trivial reasons since Kim Jong-un came to power. But Kim Jong-un has been even more cruel, even to his own family. Kim didn't even stop at his own brother. Kim Yong-nam, the elder brother of the current ruler, had already fallen out of favor with his family long before Kim Jong-un became the country's dictator. He did not agree with the atrocities his family was inflicting on the population. He dreamed of one day taking over the leadership of North Korea and, among other things, implementing economic reforms along the lines of those in China so that the people would be better off. When he was caught at the border in 2001 with a fake passport because he wanted to visit Disneyland in Japan, his father disowned him. Since then, Kim Jong-nam has been living in Macau, where he had sought asylum. He feared his father would harm him, but it was actually Kim Jong-un's younger brother who was hurt, and in a totally provocative way. When Kim Jong-nam was at Kuala Lumpur Airport in Malaysia in 2017, he was the victim of a YouTube prank, or so it seemed. 2 young Asian women suddenly ran towards him, pressed a wet cloth to his face, and ran away. The women thought they were just filming a prank for YouTube, but Kim Jong-un had hired them as puppets to neutralize his brother. The wet cloth contained one of the world's most powerful toxins. Although Kim Jong-nam only touched the cloth briefly, the contact was enough to kill him within minutes. While his brother posed no real threat to Kim Jong-un's authority because he had been living in exile for a long time and only fell victim to the dictator because he felt insulted, another relative, Jang Song-tak, was a completely different story. Kim Jong-un's uncle was chairman of the National Defense Commission and played an important role in the government. He was the second most powerful man in the country after Kim Jong-un. So, in order to prevent Jang Song-tak from rising higher and perhaps becoming a threat to him, Kim Jong-un organized an insidious conspiracy against him. First, he tried every way to make his uncle look bad in public. One of the ways he did this was to broadcast on state television that Jang Song-tak was having extramarital affairs, was corrupt, and was taking drugs. After his uncle's reputation was completely destroyed, Kim Jong-un arrested him during a political meeting, which was broadcast live on North Korean television. He lost all his offices and was subsequently executed. Overall, Kim Jong-un's cruel acts are not limited to members of the government or his relatives. The biggest victims of Kim's policies are the North Korean people themselves. On the one hand, they are suffering from starvation because the government is doing so badly, while the Kim people live in absolute luxury. And on the other hand, Kim Jong-un is having people brutally punished for the smallest offenses that are simply absurd and would not have been punishable even under dictators like Hitler. An example of this is a case that happened in 2020. Back then, a fire broke out in a residential building in North Korea, and when a woman who had just managed to escape the flames realized that her 2 children were still in the house, she bravely ran back. She actually managed to pull the children out of the fire and they survived with minor injuries. What would probably be considered a heroic act in any other country in the world, however, did not sit well with Kim Jong-un. The woman did save her 2 children from the flames, but not the portrait of the leader, which by law must hang in every household in the country. She was subsequently sentenced to a long prison term for this offense in one of the country's terrible labor camps. As if that weren't enough, Kim Jong-un banned the woman from seeing her children again. Incidentally, the woman was betrayed by her own neighbors because one of Kim Jong-un's cruel acts is to deliberately and strategically create a climate of fear in the population in which everyone must spy on and blacken the names of their neighbors. It is also very important to Kim Jong-un that the punishments for these offenses be as effective as possible in terms of publicity. Although the regime usually denies its actions abroad, the North Korean people need to know exactly what they are threatened with if they violate Kim Jong-un's rules. In Haesan, a small North Korean town, 80 people were publicly executed in November 2015 simply for allegedly watching foreign media. Some of them were Disney fairy tale films or manga comics from Japan. The executions took place in a football stadium where hundreds of spectators, including children, were forced to watch. Through these extreme intimidation tactics, Kim Jong-un is keeping his people under control and preventing people from even daring to try to escape from North Korea. That was our video for today. Leave a like if you found it interesting and subscribe. Bye, and see you next time here at Wise Fool.